cocaine was already in the car when the sheriff gave his blessing. Not theoretical cocaine, not a future shipment to be discussed in planning. Real cocaine. 25 kilograms, 55 pounds of actual controlled substance, already loaded into a vehicle, about to make its way through the rural Mississippi Delta on U.S. Highway 61 toward Memphis, Tennessee, and the sheriff of Washington County, Mississippi, had been paid to bless it. Blessing. That is the specific word the federal indictment uses to describe what Sheriff Milton Gaston and Humphreys County Sheriff Bruce Williams allegedly provided in exchange for their bribes. Not active assistance, not participation in the transport, a blessing. The official sanction of law enforcement authority granted by elected sheriffs who understood that their counties were being used as a transit corridor for cartel cocaine, and who had decided that their official position was worth more as a cartel asset than as a law enforcement obligation. $20,000, $37,000. That is what the indictments describe as the bribe amounts paid per escort operation to law enforcement personnel who provided armed protection for a person they understood to be a Mexican cartel member moving cocaine through the Mississippi Delta. The person they were protecting, an FBI undercover agent. On October 30th, 2025, the FBI unsealed indictments charging 2 Mississippi sheriffs and 12 additional law enforcement officers, 14 total from Mississippi Delta County and state agencies, in connection with a drug trafficking and bribery scheme that used Highway 61 as a cartel transit route. Additionally, 6 civilians were charged in related indictments, bringing the total to 20 people indicted across multiple charging documents. Acting U.S. Attorney Clay Joyner described it as a monumental betrayal of the public's trust. A monumental betrayal by 2 sheriffs, 12 officers, across multiple Mississippi Delta counties. 3 separate escort operations conducted in 2023 and 2024 along the same highway, protecting the same undercover agent, carrying the same cocaine. This is the story of what happens when the sheriff's office stops being a law enforcement agency and becomes a cartel asset, and of how the FBI spent years building a case from the ground up before the October morning when agents made 14 law enforcement arrests simultaneously across the Mississippi Delta. Let's go back to the beginning of the investigation and build the full picture. The investigation started with a complaint. The most ordinary way that corruption investigations begin. Someone got arrested, and the arrested person told law enforcement that they had been paying bribes, not to the cartels, to police, to the specific officers and officials who were shaking down the same drug market they were supposed to be disrupting. The Mississippi Delta has a specific law enforcement landscape. Rural counties, elected sheriffs with broad local authority, limited oversight from state or federal agencies in day-to-day operations, communities where the sheriff is not just a law enforcement official, but one of the most powerful local political figures, an elected official with authority over who gets arrested, who gets charged, and how aggressively the law gets enforced. That landscape, combined with the geographic reality of the Delta, a rural corridor along the Mississippi River that connects the Gulf Coast to Memphis, and through which significant quantities of drugs have historically moved, made it a specific environment where law enforcement corruption could develop and persist without triggering the kind of institutional oversight that might catch it faster in a more urban setting. The FBI's Jackson field office began its investigation when the complaints identified a pattern. Multiple individuals across multiple encounters with Mississippi Delta law enforcement, describing the same basic dynamic, paying bribes to officers who were supposed to be enforcing the law, but who were operating as a parallel commercial system in which official authority was for sale. What's your read? When an FBI investigation into Mississippi law enforcement corruption begins because arrested people are complaining about paying bribes to police, does this suggest the corruption had been operating so openly that ordinary criminal defendants knew it was accessible? Or does it reflect something more specific about the specific community environment of the Mississippi Delta? Type A if the openness of the corruption is the key indicator. Type B if the community environment created specific conditions. Drop it in the comments. The FBI's response, create an undercover operation, An agent would present himself as a Mexican cartel member, needing safe passage through Mississippi for drug shipments. He would reach out to law enforcement contacts in the Delta. He would make offers. He would pay what was asked. And every meeting, every offer, every payment would be documented for eventual prosecution. 3 operations. 3 times the undercover agent, posing as a cartel operative, loaded a vehicle with 25 kilograms of cocaine and drove through Mississippi Delta counties with armed law enforcement escort. 3 times local officers in uniform, in marked vehicles, provided the protection that made the transport viable. Along U.S. Highway 61, the Blues Highway, the road that connects the Mississippi Delta's rural communities north toward Memphis, that has been a corridor of American cultural and commercial history since the Great Migration. The road that, in 2023 and 2024, was being used by law enforcement officers as a paid escort route for undercover FBI cocaine shipments. The officers who provided the escort weren't junior officials. The indictments charged personnel from multiple agencies and ranks: patrol officers, a chief deputy from Sunflower County. The 2 sheriffs, Gaston and Williams, were charged specifically with giving the blessing that the operation needed from the top of the county law enforcement hierarchy. They allegedly received their bribes in exchange for that specific authorization. Gaston allegedly tried to disguise the payments as campaign contributions, reporting them through a political finance channel that would obscure the direct exchange while creating a paper record that might survive scrutiny if someone started asking questions. He did not report them as required by the campaign finance laws that govern the disclosure of political contributions. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the FBI agent who appeared in open court to describe the monumental betrayal of what law enforcement can become when it has been corrupted, and the specific moment when he said this, came against the backdrop of a mass shooting that had just killed 9 people in the Mississippi Delta, and law enforcement's response to that shooting had been hampered by community mistrust built from exactly the kind of corruption this operation exposed. Robert Eichhoff, special agent in charge of the FBI Jackson Field Office, made this connection explicitly at the press conference announcing the indictments. The FBI had faced initial impediments in responding to a mass shooting in the Delta earlier that month. The impediments were not technical or logistical. They were social. Community members who had watched their local law enforcement take cartel money for armed escort services did not trust law enforcement's response to a mass casualty incident. The corruption had a cost beyond the drug trafficking it facilitated. It had a cost in the destroyed relationship between law enforcement and the communities they served. A cost that made itself visible when 9 people were shot, and the community that needed law enforcement to respond effectively did not fully trust the institution that arrived to help. Law enforcement is only effective when the community they protect can trust the law enforcement officers are honestly serving the community's interests, Eichhoff said. That trust had been sold for $20,000 per escort, for $37,000 per escort, for the specific price that the cartel paid for the blessing of sheriffs who decided their counties were available for transit. You've seen the full picture. 2 elected sheriffs, 12 officers, 3 escort operations, 2023-2024, 25 killing cocaine per trip, FBI undercover cartel member, bribes of $20K, $37K per operation, Gaston disguising payments as campaign contributions, 20 people indicted October 30, 2025, mass shooting with impaired response due to community distrust. What's the most significant detail in this operation? Comment below. The cases are pending. As of the most recent available public filing, no convictions have been entered. The indictments describe the alleged conduct. The defendants have not entered pleas as of the most recent available public record. Joyner said at the time of the arrest that he believed all defendants had been granted bond. 2 elected sheriffs, released on bond, while awaiting trial on federal drug trafficking and bribery charges that describe them providing armed escort services for Mexican cartel cocaine operations in their own counties. The federal charges carry significant penalties. The firearm charges, 19 of the 20 people indicted were charged with knowingly carrying firearms in relation to a drug trafficking crime, Add mandatory minimums that significantly increase the potential sentences. The drug trafficking charges carry decades of potential imprisonment. But the cases are pending. The communities in Washington County and Humphreys County have sheriffs who have been released on bond while facing these charges. The law enforcement institutions that the allegations describe as cartel assets are still operating, presumably under new management, while the elected leaders face trial. These investigations, FBI Jackson Field Office coordinating with the Drug Enforcement Administration and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Mississippi, represent the specific counterintelligence commitment to holding law enforcement officers to the same laws they are sworn to enforce. If this level of detail is what you come here for, a thumbs up is the best way to support this work. Was this justice in process? 20 people indicted, including 2 elected sheriffs, 3 documented FBI sting operations, full charging documents public? Or do the pending cases, the bond releases, and the ongoing law enforcement operations in the affected counties represent the specific gap between indictment and accountability that the communities of the Mississippi Delta have been living with while waiting for the trials to conclude? Drop your verdict in the comments. One detail, the one that the indictment's language makes specific but that press coverage generally passed over. Blessing. The word the federal charging document uses, Sheriffs Gaston and Williams allegedly received bribes in exchange for giving cartel cocaine operations their blessing, not their participation, not their active assistance, their blessing, the official sanction of elected law enforcement leadership that told the officers below them and the cartel members working with those officers that the operation had clearance from the top. The blessing is the specific feature that makes the sheriff's alleged conduct categorically different from a patrol officer who took money to look the other way. A patrol officer who accepts a bribe provides a personal service to the people who pay. A sheriff who provides a blessing provides institutional sanction. He is telling the criminal operation that the institution he leads, the sheriff's office, the county law enforcement authority, the elected law enforcement power, is aligned. That alignment, allegedly purchased for $20,000 and $37,000 per operation, is the zagadka that the indictments describe, but that the pending trials will have to address specifically. What did the blessing produce? Beyond the 3 documented escort operations, were there other operations not captured in the 3 FBI undercover trips? Were there other drivers, other loads, other amounts that moved through Washington County and Humphreys County while their sheriffs had provided their blessing? The indictments cover what the FBI's undercover operations documented, the full scope of what moved through these counties during the period when 2 sheriffs had been paid to provide their blessing is a question that neither the indictments nor the available public record fully answers. What stays with you? The blessing? The specific language of official sanction purchased for cartel money? The 3 escort operations on Highway 61, the Blues Highway, carrying FBI undercover cocaine? The mass shooting whose law enforcement response was hampered by community distrust built from exactly this corruption? Or the pending trials, 2 sheriffs released on bond, the accountability still ahead? Let's discuss it below. One more number, the one that defines how long the bribery pattern had been operating before the FBI's undercover operation built the specific documented case. The investigation began when people who had been arrested complained about having to pay bribes to various individuals. That is the language of the original reporting. The complaints came first. The undercover operation was the response to complaints that described an already functioning system. How long had the system been functioning before the complaints that triggered the undercover investigation? That question is not answered in the available indictments, which cover the 3 specific escort operations the FBI documented in 2023 and 2024. The indictments describe what the undercover agent experienced. They do not describe the full timeline of what was happening before the undercover agent arrived. But the complaints that started the investigation predate the undercover operation. People who had been arrested were complaining about paying bribes. Multiple people, across multiple arrests, describing the same dynamic. That pattern suggests not a recent phenomenon, but an established practice. a system sufficiently known to people operating in the informal criminal economy of the Delta that arrested individuals could describe it to law enforcement without believing they were providing unusual information. An established practice of unknown duration that the FBI's undercover operation documented in 3 specific instances. The 3 instances are the indictment. The full duration is the Zagadka. What the full duration produced, how much cocaine moved through Washington County and Humphreys County during the period that the sheriff's blessing was available for purchase, is the question that no indictment and no pending trial will fully answer. The blessing was for sale. For how long and at what total volume is the question that the 20 indictments close without opening.